shit.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wait.
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Tales from a Community College AI Think Tank, a 4-part pulse check series from Enrollify. I'm Adam Heidebrink-Bruno, digital content strategist at Finger Lakes Community College, and your host for today's conversation. In this series, we'll discuss how to move forward with AI in higher education while staying mission-driven and human-centered. You'll hear from FLCC faculty, staff, and community partners who share their own stories of experimenting, deploying, and teaching with AI. Most importantly, we'll discuss strategies you can use at your home campus to prepare for the challenges and opportunities of the AI era. Let's get started. If your campus has plenty of AI activity but remains a little light on the strategy, you're not alone. Many higher education institutions are running lots of experiments without a clear path to scale the right ideas responsibly. This leaves faculty and staff reinventing the wheel rather than moving forward together. In this episode, we go behind the scenes to explore the supports that shift individual experiments to structured pilots with potential for broader implementation. We'll talk about microgrants, stipends, professional learning, and lightweight governance that doesn't kill momentum. I'm joined by Jennifer Carney, Professor of Biology and Chair of the FLCC Science and Technology Department, and Adam Wadera, Automated Systems and Technical Services Librarian. Adam and Jennifer have helped the college transform our AI initiatives into frameworks for success. Stick around to learn practical, people-centered approaches to getting long-lasting AI work done at your home institution. Adam, Jennifer, welcome. Let's dive right into this very exciting conversation and tell our listeners a little bit about your individual roles with the AI Think Tank at Finger Lakes Community College.
The AI Think Tank has two parts, the instructional focus and then a group that focuses on operations. I'm currently heading up the instructional group, so we are focused on how to use AI to deepen student learning, how our instructors using it in the classroom, and how can we really harness the power of AI to improve student outcomes.
And I'm leading up the other group, and we're focused on AI in the context of business operations and business processes. And over the past year, we've mostly focused on assessment of how people on campus are using AI, attitudes, beliefs, values surrounding AI, and creating guidance for ethical and good usage, and then also just exploring it as a cutting-edge emerging technology.
During our last episode of this podcast, we explored this idea of being an on-ramp for AI literacy and the Finger Lakes as kind of a conceptual framework for the work we're doing here at the college. So with that in mind, what principles or values shape your approach to AI leadership here at the college?
So as a community college, we're really focused on access. We're trying to be an on-ramp for lots of things, not just for AI literacy, but for our community in general. As an open access institution, we're always focused on inclusivity and being here for everyone in our community, and not just the enrolled students, but the community in general. We want to be giving back to our service area. We want to be enriching the economic vitality of our area. And so even though my focus is really on the instructional group and what's happening in the classroom, it's all informed by the greater value of being open access. So we want to meet everybody, whether they're a student in our classroom or whether they're a member of the community. We want to meet them where they're at in their journey with AI, just like with everything else. And we want to figure out what they're looking for and help them achieve those goals. In terms of in the classroom, we get students from all different backgrounds at all different points in their life with all different levels of technological literacy. And our goal is by the time they're done with a degree here, that they really understand the tools that are common in our world. So that's really what we're focused on, how to take the people who walk in through the door wherever they're at in their journey and get them to where they want to be.
One of the things I value is a ground-up approach. So working with the stakeholders of any technology and seeing what it is that they value and what they need and how we can best serve them. So it kind of ties back into that inclusivity point that Jennifer made. And I appreciate how the college set up a structure where we have kind of taken that grassroots approach and creating these subcommittees and the AI think tank in general, where anyone can join and be a part of those conversations. And that way, whatever policies and practices that we generate are coming from the ground up, from the staff and the faculty who are implementing them.
That's really well said. Being able to meet folks where they are with AI and emerging technology is so important. And with my daily work in the college, I encounter folks kind of at all different levels of literacy and experience with AI still today, right? And I'm so immersed in AI, it feels like everyone should be, but that's not the case, right? There's the literacy level of folks varies a lot from person to person, both working at the college and folks in the community and our students as well.
I think it's important to recognize that some people have objections to using AI for very ethical reasons, or they have concerns about safety. But we see a lot of students and faculty and staff who have concerns about AI because of its effect on the environment, because of its effect on vulnerable populations. So we all know that those issues are real and that the companies that are involved are massive, multi-billion-dollar companies, and that power is not shared equally among everyone on our planet. So all of that exists too. So we have to be prepared to meet people who may not just be not proficient in using AI, but who might be choosing to opt out of using AI. And we have to allow for that as well.
That's a great reminder. When we see interest and enthusiasm around some AI work, how do you find yourselves nurturing that creativity and curiosity into AI projects that can grow?
I think part of that is, creating an environment where people feel safe to express themselves in a respectful and professional manner, and also to experiment and potentially fail. I think those things are all important to that type of nurturing environment.
So one thing that we've been really trying to do at FLCC with AI is to not lock ourselves down into a single tool, to recognize that people's jobs are different and that the way they use AI is going to be very context dependent on their personal job. And even within faculty, for instance, what works best for one discipline might not work best for another discipline, right? The needs of a math instructor might be very different than the needs of a philosophy instructor. So we've been trying to be open and allow for people to do small experimentation with whatever tool they think might work for them. And then we have really been trying to nurture this idea of this as an innovative place, of building a culture of innovation, which means, like Adam said, you can fail, right? There's no innovation without the possibility of failure. So we'd like to give people a chance to try out tools and find out that this is not a good use of AI and they don't want to go forward with this and they need to try something different. And that's totally okay. So it's been a lot of individual listening and then a lot of sharing of what's working. I think people get really excited and inspired by colleagues when they hear how colleagues are using something, and it then ignites their own creativity and they think about how they can apply that in a different way.
We can't overstate the importance of creating an environment where it's safe to fail when we're exploring new ideas and innovative solutions to things, right? If you don't have a culture at a workplace or an institution where you can do that kind of safe experimentation, then you're kind of squashing innovation before it can even happen. And that really leads into this next topic as well, thinking about what supports and expectations help a project reach fruition.
The first thing that comes to mind, I think, is good documentation, or at least for some of the projects I've worked on, and being able to kind of know where you are over the course of that project. It can help you shift if needed. That documentation process is maybe that's the librarian in me kind of coming out here. It's important to know how things are going with the project, to take its temperature.
That's so funny that you say good documentation, because what you're really saying, I think, Adam, is it's important to check in as you're progressing through
For sure.
through the project. And my idea is, or my answer to this question is similar, except I was really focused on human connection there. So what I am finding in the pilots that we're running on the instructional side, what seems to be helping people is when I have one-on-one meetings with people and they talk through how their project is going and what's going well and what's not going well and where they want to go next. What they're telling me is helpful to them completing the project. So certainly having an end goal, having a timeline in place, and having some clear expectations for what we want to see out of this project. But then I think it's actually in conversation and human connection that I'm finding the structure that seems to be helping our faculty to be innovative.
And I know that firsthand, Jennifer, because we've been working on a pilot project together in the classroom, which I suspect we'll be able to talk about in a moment here.
That was a great example, because when you and I had a one-on-one meeting, we were able to work through a problem you were having in the classroom, and you used me as like a student and practice what it would look like from my end. And I think that helped advance your project forward. So yeah, that's a great example.
And let's think for a moment about a challenge that I think many institutions face, and that tends to be around limited resources and funding sometimes for these new and experimental projects. So in both of your opinions, how can limited resources be best used to drive successful AI projects?
For me with this, first, it's, I think, assessing what you already have access to. And in our case, we, like other SUNY schools, we use Microsoft services. So we had access to Copilot through that product that we already had. And that also included the ability to build agents. It's not as, there are different levels of service, but we could experiment with not just asking Copilot questions, but we could also experiment a little bit with some of the agentic features and building those out. The second part of that, I think, is also looking at other low, sort of smaller scale, maybe even open source options. And that's something I've been experimenting a little bit with, using some just sort of locally driven programs like Olama, and using that to do some analysis of documents and the AI capacities that has.
I think anytime you have a new project, you have to prioritize what's most important to you. And then I think oftentimes we think that everything's going to be very expensive, but we're actually finding a lot of things are free. So for instance, we have a community of practice. We call it the Pedagogical Spark. This is a group of about 30 different, mainly faculty, some staff, who are meeting together biweekly to discuss how AI is shaping education and what we want our role to be in it and how it's changing our classroom. And that community of practice is doing great things for our community of educators here and really advancing our knowledge, and is totally free. Another thing that is low cost, we have 2 different book clubs going this semester. So yes, books cost money, but that's pretty low cost to buy books or give people access to audiobooks or electronic versions of the books. And again, we've had a tremendous amount of sharing and education that's happened along the way with those book clubs. So I think you have to sprinkle free things in with then things that cost money. So there are things that cost money, right? But there's a heck of a lot you can do just for free, just by building the creativity on your campus. One thing I want to plug is our FLX AI Hub, and you can find all the resources at flcc.ai. And there is so much free content we've put there that is available for any institution that wants to use it. We've got got a 10-week AI challenge to get people up to basic AI literacy, and it's totally free. We've got tons of different workshops and webinars and things that are recorded content that are available for free on our website. So we're not the only one, of course, right? There's other free sources out there. So lean heavily on the free things and then use your money wisely to purchase tools as needed and to incentivize projects or support pilot projects.
As we work together on projects, Jennifer, it's interesting that, of course, there's going to be a bill for the subscriptions and the tools that we need to access, but all of the most impactful practices that you regularly cite are actually those free things, right? Building out the communities, creating platforms and opportunities for internal experts to share out their ideas and their projects and their successes. These things are very low resource if you're working with already existing kind of internal experts, right? And we've been building out a resource database of webinars and other projects and talks that we've been giving about AI online. So make sure that our community and other communities can access those resources freely and easily online.
And I think a lot of this is actually about culture change. If you're trying to build a culture of innovation and a culture that is tech forward and ready to engage with emerging technologies, that's really about culture change. And culture change doesn't cost money. Culture change is all about creating opportunities for dialogue and sharing. It's about celebrating and elevating those people who are doing great work within your community. And it doesn't cost any money at all to do that. And that can really have a big impact on your institution.
Well said. Let's get specific for a moment and talk about examples of pilots that you've worked on that have become bigger and more sustainable after some of the initial experimentation in that area.
So I don't want to overstate where we're at. We're definitely still in that transition point from pilots turning into sustainable situations, or sustainable practice, I guess. On the faculty side of things, we are running a pilot project this semester for AI enhanced lessons, where we have 7 faculty members who are intentionally implementing an AI enhanced lesson in their classroom and then giving a common assessment afterwards, a common student survey to see what the students think about it, and then are going to be writing those up as case studies so that we can publish them as use cases within our college community. It's our intention then to turn this into really to expand it into AI enhanced course sections next year. So this is a very intentional 3-step process where we started with a small group of faculty doing AI enhanced lessons, and they're sharing out that information and how that went. We're building on that with a community of practice where people are discussing how to really impact student learning in a big way, how to center student learning and agency and autonomy at the heart of our AI adoption, and then giving people a chance to roll that out in the fall of the next academic year, or maybe in the spring semester of next academic year, to really enhance whole courses. So we're taking a staged approach intentionally to try to build capacity at our institution.
Also on our side, on the business process side, we're still very much in that experimental phase as well. But I think one of the things that I think we've done a good job of doing over the past year or two is creating a sustainable infrastructure and sustainable processes to continually reevaluate emerging technologies, including AI, and to make sure that our guidance on those technologies is as up to date as possible. It changes so quickly that's very, very challenging, and you're almost always behind as soon as you create something new. But I think having at least something in place where we are on a regular basis looking over the guidelines that we've created and assessing new technologies, and just having those conversations, again going back to people and connections, and staying in touch with the stakeholders that are using these technologies or that may want to use those technologies, keeping it rooted in them and keeping those lines of communication open.
And I think I would add here that example of what we're doing well here to inspire experimentation is making the funding process lower lift and faster than perhaps the typical funding cycle at colleges and universities, right? If you have to wait to launch your pilot through the next, funding cycle, that pilot may no longer be relevant. So often folks need to act now when an opportunity for an experiment or pilot starts. And we have created a streamlined approach to requesting funding for an AI experiment, getting that information to our think tank for review, and then getting the funding back to the experimenter quickly outside of the typical, college funding cycle. And that helps folks move forward quickly with this technology.
Yes, absolutely.
For sure.
And then let's think a little bit about how we are monitoring and thinking about these projects as they're moving forward. How do you know when a project is working? What success metrics are you using? Which ones matter to you? What's success look like when we're experimenting with AI?
I think it kind of goes back a little bit to, again, communication, checking in with the people who are using it and documenting where they are. And also going back to, success can also be found even in if it doesn't go according to plan. I don't want to say failure, but I think you can almost any situation or any pilot can be valuable if you've taken time to listen to whoever's involved in it and to document that information and to analyze it and really take it to heart.
Yeah, so all data is data, right? So as a scientist, when you start an experiment, it's not a failure if your hypothesis is not confirmed, right? That's still a successful experiment.
Right.
And so we talked earlier about needing to allow for failure. And if it's really, truly innovative work that we're supporting, then things are not necessarily going to work out. That doesn't mean that your pilot was unsuccessful. That means that you figured out limitations or changes that need to be made. You gather data that's going to better inform your next experiment, your next endeavor. So I think for me, the success metrics that matter at this point are whether we're getting strong engagement with our faculty, with our students, with our staff. When people start a project, they're actually doing what they commit to, right? That they're following through, right? If they don't have the correct support, then we're going to see people just sort of dropping out of our pilots. That's not what I want. That is what I would consider to be failure. But if they're supported and they have the resources, then they're going to be able to stick with it. And it's okay if they come back and say, this was a terrible idea. I don't like what had happened in my classroom. I would never do this again. This did not work. The students hated it. Okay, great. Share with us why that was. And let's see if we can figure out what happened, and we're going to share that lesson out with others so that they don't make that same mistake. So to me, it's the level of participation that is more of a success metric than whether the experimentation actually worked.
I love the idea that a documented failure is actually a success, right? Because I think it's the undocumented failure or unconfirmed hypothesis that is what we want to avoid. But if you are able to try something out, discover it did not work as anticipated, and then share that out with the community of thinkers and learners at your institution, that's a huge success, because with emerging technology like this, there's a high risk of folks running the same experiment over and over in isolation from one another.
Right. Well, and AI is
And so if
developing
you're,
so quickly that it's not like there's published research of best practices with every tool and every way of engaging. I mean, we're developing that now. I like to think that we are developing the best practices. And that means that you're going to also stumble across ones that you're like, oh no, that is not going to be on my list of best practices. That turns out to not be a good practice. That's useful to know.
Yeah. And then just adding some emphasis maybe to what Jennifer said earlier, I think when these experimentations are happening in the classroom, it makes a lot of sense to carefully monitor the student experience of those experimentations and to measure and monitor the impact it's having on their learning and on their experience in the course.
And I just want to clarify here, because we're starting to sound like students are guinea pigs, and I don't love that. Of course, we're all professional educators, and what we're doing in the classroom is still informed by our background and our understanding of pedagogy, and we're trying to make the best choices we can at every moment for student learning. And I think we've probably, if you're an experienced educator, you've had a lesson that didn't quite go the way you wanted it to go. That's very different than like engaging in experiments on our students, so I don't want to give that impression. Also, there was a recently publicized Student AI Bill of Rights from the National Student Legal Defense Network. And it's a great read to see what do students say they deserve in this age of AI. And one of the things that they ask for essentially is to not be guinea pigs, right? To not be experimented on without knowing it. One of their points is students have the right to know that the education they are paying for is being designed and provided by individuals with sufficient knowledge and experience and with an educational background appropriate for the course being taught. I want to definitely center the students here. What we're doing at community colleges is all about the students. And so we need to make sure that their learning is at the center of every decision that we make at every level, even organizational levels.
And the scaffolding that we have in place really supports that, with starting with a small group of faculty working with AI enhanced lessons and then building to broader implementation after some of those initial experiments are done. So that's great. I will have to take a look at that publication you just mentioned, Jennifer, and we'll include it in the show notes for our listeners. Final question, hopefully leave our listeners with a few things to think about after this podcast is over. Final question, if you had to build a pilot to practice pipeline from scratch and with limited resources, what is essential?
One of the things that I think our institution has done well, and this is at the level of our higher leadership, our board of trustees and our president and our vice presidents, they have set up a structure and then they've gotten out of the way. So they've provided the right amount of structure and resources. They decided how much money we could spend on these endeavors, and they dedicated that. And then they set up this basic structure of the AI think tank to say, okay, this is how we're going to decide how to spend that money. But then they've stepped back and they've let the grassroots implementation be entirely bottom up. Everybody at our institution is bringing projects, right? A department secretary comes forward and says, I think we could do this particular aspect of meeting transcription better, and here's a tool I think we should use, right? And we want to be empowering at our institution at all levels. And so setting up the leadership structure has really allowed us to use limited resources, but in a way that is meaningful to the people who are working at the institution.
The difference is the people doing their job, and I work on the business process side of the think tank, where if they come to you and say, here are some things that I wish I could automate or do differently, then you can bring AI or some other technology potentially to it and see if it's helpful and if it works. But again, always, rooting it in the experience of the actual end user or the stakeholder.
Thinking about the AI headlines I see about how some companies are tying performance reviews to AI implementation, or they're being told very heavy-handedly from their management and supervisors, use this tool in this way for these tasks. I have not experienced that at all here at Finger Lakes Community College, and it's very much the inverse. I read about a tool or a technique that seems really effective or useful for me as a marketing practitioner for the college, and I say, hey, I would love to experiment with this technology, and then the response I get from supervisors and college leadership is, absolutely, try it out. How can we help? And that model has been so helpful to me to be able to explore the areas of AI that's most useful to me in my department. And as Adam's saying, that varies so much by functional area to functional area that they know best, and being able to support them as they identify their needs is vital. That's great.
So Deb Ortloff, who's our VP of Strategic Initiatives, she said to me last week that one of the things she's tried to do with this AI project is find ways to say yes. So she's tried to set up a structure so that when people say, I want to try this, I want to do this, can we move in this direction? She can say yes, right? And the structure has allowed for that because the Board of Trustees set aside some funding and then trusted the president to figure out how to handle the implementation. And the president empowered the VP of Strategic Initiatives to actually do that. And now she is able to say yes. So how fantastic is that, right? What a great way to encourage innovation. If you're not always saying no to someone, if you're saying yes almost all the time when people are bringing you a new and innovative idea, that's the culture we want, and that's how we're going to move forward.
What a perfect note to end on. I think that's a fantastic piece of advice for other campuses situated elsewhere across the country. That's it for today, folks. I hope this talk helps you build successful AI pilots at your home campuses. Jennifer, Adam, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. You can find out more about what Finger Lakes Community College is doing with AI at flcc.edu/AI. This is Tales from a Community College AI Think Tank. We'll see you next time.
The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.